you see now how all your so-called power counts for absolutely nothing. How your entire empire of destruction comes crashing down, all because of one little cherry. One little. What a lovely ballet. It seems so full of form and color. One little. It is the end of the week. Another crazy busy week this week. I didn't do a good job of updating the last vlog. I did a terrible job of updating this vlog because I really couldn't update you. We went to a concert, which was super fun, but something we like never do. Our washer is toast, so we had to buy a new washer. So we've been going to Costco to decide if we were going to join Costco, which we did. I was supposed to see a friend in Brooklyn, and that didn't end up happening, which was kind of good because I've had so much work to do. But my husband won tickets to a Mets game, so we did have to go to Queens later in the week and watch that. And it was a terrible game because they lost, but a very fun game because it was so fun to go. I have finished 4 books this week. The first book that I finished was The Wedding by Dorothy West. I've been reading this one for a long time. I was thinking about it, and I think this was my April book for the TBR spin, so I am very far behind on that. It might have even been my March book, honestly. I started reading this physically because there was only an abridged audio of this, and I just couldn't get into it. It has very stylized writing. I've been reading quite a few books with like very stylized, kind of fanciful, but beautiful language and writing. It's not that it was so difficult, the writing, but it was just the cadence and the way that the writing was in this book that made it really hard for me to get into. And so I decided I was going to pick up the abridged audiobook and see like how abridged it was and read it like that, just so I could call it read. And it's so weird because that's happened to me a lot this year. The Glory of Their Times, which was that baseball book. I did it for My Gorgeous Life, which was the book that I read a couple of weeks ago by Dame Edna Everage, and now I've done it with this one. So I don't know what the trend towards that is, and I don't love it, but all of those books, all of these books, I will be keeping, and I will definitely be revisiting. It's really a shame that there's only an abridged audio of this book, because it is definitely an important Black American work of literature, I think, and it does take place in like the 50s, and it all revolves around this little beach town in Massachusetts on Martha's Vineyard. Martha's Vineyard is a weird place to begin with. It's a little island, it's very rich, it's very secluded, and the people who live there in real life are very, what's the word, like insular and isolated in a lot of ways, and they're very proud and they love where they live. And this book talks about a Black community within that community called the Oval. The Oval is where the affluent Black people vacation during the summer on Martha's Vineyard, and we follow a couple of families and a couple of people who are there over one summer. And the main character, one of the main characters, is Shelby, and she is getting married in just a few days. It's a lot about her family. They're all light-skinned, and this book has a lot to do with colorism and with discrimination against Black people and racism and colorism within the Black community and colorism outside of the Black community. Shelby is very light-skinned. She is marrying a white man, and her grandmother, who is actually white, is really happy about this, but the rest of her family are not so happy about this. Her sister married a Black man and have a darker-skinned Black child. The grandmother really doesn't like this. So there's all this layers of colorism, layers of racism that people have to face, layers of discrimination. They, have servants because they're affluent Black people, so like there's that kind of layer. The people around them in Martha's Vineyard don't want them to be there, don't want the Oval to exist, try to make sure that they keep to themselves. And then there's another man that we follow who only dates white women and has 3 young girls of mixed race descent with 3 different white women. He's rented a place in the Oval. He's recently kind of come into money. He's a little bit nouveau riche. He sees Shelby, the woman getting married, and decides that he wants her and wants her to be his next wife and his next baby mama. So the story is really about the connections between all these people and the connections to the outside world, and how all those topics and all those things create this unique situation that's going on in the Oval and going on Martha's Vineyard. But it's also about desire, it's also about fear of Black people, internalized racism and internalized colorism, and it's just really, really fascinating. I really ended up enjoying it. There's some shocking moments, there's a little bit of animal violence, not too much. The story kind of goes backwards and forwards in time. So we learn about Shelby's childhood, we learn about her mother, we learn about the grandmother, we learn about the dog, we learn about, all sorts of various people. And the part that was cut out in the abridged audiobook, which was, a sizable chunk, all this was cut out, as well as a couple of little snippets here and there. And that really has to do with the history of Shelby's father. So in some ways it makes sense to have cut that out because you might not need so much backstory, but because this story is layering things on and showing history repeating itself and showing, how racism and colorism are perpetualized and things like that, like it would have been good to have that in there, and I would definitely like to revisit this one. One of the things that I loved about it on audio is when I was reading it, I didn't get the humor in it, and again, maybe that's because the language is so stylized, but I really didn't see the funny parts when I was reading it physically. Maybe I was just not in the right mood, but the audiobook really brought out the funny parts. So I definitely laughed sometimes at this too, and I thought it was a really interesting read, and I definitely look forward. I know that Dorothy West wrote a couple of other books, but I don't know which ones, but I would definitely keep my eye out for more by that author. The next book that I read was actually my 100th book of the year, which I didn't even realize. If I had realized that it was going to be my 100th book of the year, maybe I would have read something a little bit more exciting, but it was a very short story called Time Will Tell by Hannah Bonam-Young. I've heard about this romance author. I think they do a lot of representation for like disability and stuff like that, which I think is interesting. And this is a short story that's great for taste testing authors, so I wanted to do that. Time Will Tell is about a teacher. The heroine of the story is a high school teacher, I think, and she is a history teacher. She loves history, she loves teaching, but she doesn't feel like she's a very effectual teacher. But she has found a time capsule that her grandmother left her, and she's taken it into school to show her students to try to get them excited about history. And it turns out that unbeknownst to her or her family, her grandmother was queer, and she had been in a long-term relationship with a woman for a long time, but because of the time, because of the prejudices, the grandmother decided to leave her lover, the true lover of her life, and marry a man. And she only ever came out to her family after her death with this time capsule. She created this time capsule with the love of her life, and our main character is asked by her grandmother and decides she will track down this woman and try to open this time capsule. Unfortunately, the woman has passed away. Her grandmother's lover has passed away. Fortunately, the grandson of that woman is super excited to open the time capsule as well, and they start corresponding, and within those correspondence, sparks are flying. So this was a very cute romance. It was very sweet. Again, another unexpected queer book for Pride. I read a couple of those this month so far, books that I didn't know would be queer but ended up being queer. So it was really lovely that the grandmother's love story was finally exposed, and that the families took it well, and that the teacher was able to teach young folks about the importance of being oneself, all that fun, sweet stuff. And it was a nice, like, slow burn romance, because obviously they're just corresponding via email and phone and text and stuff. It was not a steamy romance by any means, but it was just very sweet, and I'm super glad that it was queer, and I enjoyed it. I would read something else from this author. I don't know. I wouldn't prioritize it though, I guess. The next book that I finished this week was The Body in the Library by Agatha Christie. This is a reread for me, and I wanted to reread this because of the Guardian list. So the Guardian list of 100 best books, and then the Reader's Choice list of 100 best books, has sparked Katie Lumden. I can't remember her name. Books and Things is her channel. I will leave it listed down below, to create a BookTube's 100 best book list, and I've been struggling to compile my 10 top books that are the best books. So like, I have a top 10 or 15 or 20 list of my favorite books, but I don't think those are the best books. A lot of the books that I like because they're situational, because they're time and a place, because they're comfort reads to me, because I think they're great books, but not the best books. So I've been thinking about a top 10 list of the best books, and I really wanted to include a Agatha Christie. Now, my favorite Agatha Christie so far have been The Caribbean Mystery, At Bertram's Hotel, and Nemesis, which I kind of think is 3 parts of one long story. I didn't want to include those in this list, and I thought that The Body in the Library by Agatha Christie, which is the second in the Miss Marple series, would be the one. So I reread it, and absolutely, what a great, fun, wonderful novel. I gotta say, I will definitely always vote for Miss Marple over Poirot. I know the Poirot books are great. I know that Poirot is very funny, but Miss Marple is so much better-hearted and kinder and nicer and more sly and less arrogant. Like, she has some arrogance to her too, but she is definitely much better character in my mind than Poirot. Has more subtleties and has more experience in some ways, and I just think she's so great. And The Body in the Library is definitely one of my favorites of the series. And I think this book is the one that I'll pick for the top 10. The first book doesn't count. It's like weird. It's told from a weird narrator. The Body in the Library has everything you want from a Miss Marple. It has a lot of Miss Marple in it, which some of them don't. It's very self-referential. It's very silly. It's got all the classic things about Miss Marple that you want. It's just so good, and I was so happy to reread that one. The last book that I finished this week, I finished this morning, and that was Death by the Riverside by J.M. Redmann. This is a noir style book written in the 90s and taking place in New Orleans. And if you know me, I love books set in New Orleans. I love New Orleans in general. And this one I was extra super excited to find because it is a queer series about a private eye named Mickey Knight. So this is the first book in the series, and in this we meet Mickey Knight and we kind of see what her deal is. You know, every noir detective has like a deal, and Mickey's deal is that she's a little bit of a womanizer. She's a little bit of a cad. She's definitely the kind of person who pushes her friends away and tries to keep people at arm's length. She's willing to do crazy stuff for what she thinks is right and for her clients. In the very beginning of this book, we see a woman client asking her to track down her fiance who has left her. So Mickey tracks this guy down, and it turns out that he's queer and he's working in a queer bar, and the woman barges in, takes pictures, but Mickey quickly finds out that this woman has been lying and that she's taking pictures for a worse reason. So Mickey kind of seeks revenge on this woman, and that sets off a chain of events, leading Mickey to learn more about this family and leading her to learn more about the mansion where this affluent family live out in the bayou in New Orleans, lead her to meet other people in the family who she likes a lot better than this woman who was lying to her. This is a pretty classic like noir. Mickey has a friend who's a DA, Mickey has a friend who's on the police force, and her friend Joanne on the police force asks her to help her with a task. This task goes wrong, and somehow Mickey gets wrapped up in a drug deal and a mystery and murder, and it's just a really fun, fast-paced, thrilling noir adventure. And then of course Mickey has a past that she is not necessarily willing to share or hasn't wanted to share. That's partly why she pushes people away from her, and she's going to have to reconcile with that at some point. And it's just really good. It has all the tropes of noir, but it also has the added bonus of being very casually queer and being very queer and happily queer. The only thing I would say about this book that I didn't love was there was not enough like rooted in New Orleans. Like, yes, you have the bayou, yes, you have, you know, some mention of New Orleans. It didn't have that New Orleans feel. Like when I read a New Orleans book, I want to feel like I'm in New Orleans. Like I want to be transported there. That's partly why I love the Skip Langdon series by Julie Smith, because there's always a lot about New Orleans, and New Orleans really feels like a living city when you're reading it. And it is a living city when you're there. It's like just one of the most magical places in the world. So I would have liked to have seen more New Orleans in this book. But overall, I really enjoyed it. And I do actually have the second in the series, and I will definitely be keeping my eye out for more in this series. I think this book is going to show up on my mid-year freakout for a question that a lot of people don't answer. So let me know if you've read any of the books that I mentioned here. Let me know what you thought of them. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.